The village of Oriskany sits between Rome and Utica, with the Mohawk River to the north and Oriskany Creek running right through the middle of it. It first existed as a native Oneida village long before colonial settlement. And what happened here over the years is a story that deserves to be told. The land of Oriskany was sculpted by melting ice sheets thousands of years ago, producing fertile fields and rolling hills across the Mohawk Valley. The land shaped by ice welcomed the Oneida people, who planted the Three Sisters, corn, beans, and squash, sustaining their communities. As members of the Haudenosaunee, the Oneida lived alongside other nations while maintaining their own communities. At the junction of Oriskany Creek and the Mohawk River, they established a village and named it Oriska, deriving from a word meaning place of nettles. Its location was ideal, with fresh water, natural defenses, and fertile land. By the early 1600s, Dutch traders were arriving with tools, cloth, and weapons to swap for furs. Trade flourished, especially with the village's proximity to the great portage path known as the Daowainsta. The area eventually became part of the British colonial system, though the Oneida maintained their presence at Oriska. In 1705, a tract of over 30,000 acres, known as the Oriskany Patent, was granted in the central part of what is now Oneida County. In the 1750s, a wider struggle between Britain and France spilled into the Mohawk Valley during the 7 Years' War. Like most Haudenosaunee, the Oneida ultimately supported the British cause, seeking to protect their territory and communities. A couple decades later, war returned as colonists rose against British rule, pulling the valley into yet another conflict. Early in this war, the British targeted the Hudson Valley, with different troop movements aimed at Albany. And it all came to a head when a large British force, including Haudenosaunee allies, was moving towards the Patriot-held Fort Stanwix, called Fort Schuyler at the time, and within Oneida territory. The Oneidas had to pick a side, and most decided to stand with the colonists, which makes them America's first allies. In August, the British began a siege of Fort Schuyler, and word spread quickly with the help of an Oneida woman known as Tyona Janigan. Hearing the news, the Tryon County Militia quickly responded, and led by Brigadier General Nicholas Herkimer, they marched to relieve the besieged fort. On August 5th, they camped near the village of Oriska and picked up about 80 Oneida warriors who joined their ranks. The next morning, disaster struck as the force was ambushed by Loyalist troops and British allied Haudenosaunee. The fighting quickly became a brutal, Civil War-style clash, during which Herkimer was mortally wounded, and it was just complete chaos. It ended up being one of the bloodiest conflicts of the entire Revolutionary War, and it left devastation in its wake. After the Battle of Oriskany, the shock carried through both native and colonial communities. The Oneida's support of the Patriots caused divisions within the Confederacy that last to this day. A few weeks after the battle, Mohawk warriors set the village of Oriska ablaze. After the war, increasing land sales and treaties forced the Oneidas to leave Oriska, and they would resettle elsewhere. European American settlers soon arrived, with Ephraim Webster opening a trading post in 1784 and Colonel Garrett Lansing setting up shop in 1802. The modern name of Oriskany was being used by this time, perhaps as a combination of Oriska and an early informal shorthand for New York State. In 1811, Lansing and partners launched the Oriskany Manufacturing Company, marking a shift from purely agricultural to industrial activity. The Erie Canal, first watered by Oriskany Creek in 1819, soon brought new businesses, travelers, and opportunities that reshaped village life. The village developed schools, churches, and a post office during this period, with railroads and plank roads arriving by the mid-1800s. The 1880s saw the dedication of a giant obelisk honoring the sacrifices of 1777. At the turn of the century, Oriskany was thriving with industry, agriculture, and growing residential neighborhoods. By that point, you have the Oriskany Fire Company, and the village expanding its social and recreational life. Summit Park became a local hotspot with roller coasters, boat rentals, and even a speech by Theodore Roosevelt in 1910. And it was around this time that Oriskany was officially incorporated as a village in the town of Whitestown. In the years that followed, the Erie Canal was transformed into the Barge Canal. So they filled in the old canal section and straightened parts of the nearby Mohawk River. This allowed for larger vessels to pass through the region. However, canals were on their way out, especially with the rise of the automobile. And speaking of which, in the 1930s, Route 69 was constructed along the historic line of march that Herkimer used in 1777. Then you got a library beginning in 1937, and in 1950, the U.S. Navy commissioned the aircraft carrier USS Oriskany at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, honoring the Battle of Oriskany. Eventually, the quote-unquote Mighty O served in Korea and Vietnam before being decommissioned. Like many other places in upstate New York, Oriskany navigated mid-20th century changes with deindustrialization and suburbanization shaping daily life. In 1992, Trinkus Manor, a local landmark, burned down, and since then Oriskany has worked to balance modern life with historical preservation. Today, the village honors its Oneida heritage and the crucial events at the Oriskany battlefield. Visitors come to learn, reflect, and participate in historical programs. Like me. I visited the obelisk recently, and I was honestly moved by it. Beyond the battle, the history of Oriskany reminds us of the contributions of the Oneida community to regional history, and the village's overall role in shaping the Mohawk Valley. Have a good one.